video program, we are going to point out how farmers can ensure good yields of sweet potatoes. Specifically, we are going to see how farmers can get ready for sweet potato production, how they can properly establish and develop sweet potato gardens, and how they can manage pests and diseases. It is important that farmers listen and understand the recommendations in this program because it will enable them ensure a good yield of their sweet potatoes. Sweet potato is globally the second most economically important root crop after potato and is an important food security crop in many parts of Uganda. Root crops are unusually important relatives of cereals in Uganda. This makes sweet potato a very important crop to consider. The crop is among the most widely grown food crops in Uganda and plays a primary role in ensuring food security in the country. Currently, several factors are causing considerable reduction to sweet potato production, and these factors include the lack of good planting materials, shortage of high-yielding, early maturing, drought-tolerant, high dry matter and high beta-carotene content varieties, sweet potato weevils, sweet potato viruses, low soil fertility, lack of markets and or market information, short shelf life of fresh fruits after harvest, and limited processing opportunities. All these factors compound together to hinder the production of sweet potato in Uganda. Despite the array of these factors, however, great progress has been made over the past years in ensuring that sweet potato development and production is increased. The progress has ensured that the long-term challenge of sweet potato development in Uganda is to increase the production per unit area. In this radio program, therefore, we want to point out how farmers can ensure good yields of their sweet potatoes. Especially, are we going to look at how they can get their sweet potato production off the ground, how they can properly establish and develop sweet potato gardens, and how they can manage pests and diseases and weeds that are prevalent in sweet potato fields. How can farmers get ready for sweet potato production? We want to discuss a series of steps that farmers can follow to be able to ensure that they have a ready start to produce good sweet potato crop. We shall look at varieties, we shall look at the planting material, how they can select proper planting material, how they can store vines for later planting, and where they could source planting materials from. Varieties. Farmers should always be on the lookout for new varieties with better characteristics such as a high yielding potential, good root characteristics, that is the shape, the flesh color and nutrition value, tolerance to major pests and diseases, drought tolerance, a better taste, a higher market price, the ability to produce enough planting material, long in-ground storability, availability of planting material, and with faster maturity. Farmers must therefore consider these factors in mind as they choose varieties that fit and perform best under their prevailing farming conditions. Talking of planting materials, one of the main requirements of obtaining a healthy crop is the use of healthy planting material. A healthy crop is better able to compensate for damage, particularly if resistant to pests and diseases, enhancing its chances of producing a satisfactory yield for the farmer. Therefore, farmers need to be very careful in selecting planting materials, and these are some of the things they need to look out for as they select healthy planting material. Visually, the farmers need to ensure that the planting material that they're selecting, the mother plants, are free from any symptoms of pests and disease. The material should be clean. Then the selection of these cuttings or vines that are going to be used for planting should be made in such a way that they are going to be resistant to drought, they are of a good, they can yield well, they are of a tasty variety, and that the roots are marketable. Farmers need to look out for the top 25 to 35 centimeters of the vine or the fresh cutting or planting material. This is the best part to be used as planting material. This part most easily recovers from cutting and planting shock and establishes faster than the lower parts of the vine. In addition, the tip is more likely to be free of sweet potato weevil pupae, larvae, and eggs, and stem borer eggs. Dry season preservation of planting material can be done by planting vines in swampy areas and a shade of a tree or bananas, or near homesteads where planting materials can easily be looked after. To ensure good quality planting material, therefore, it is important for good care to be taken for the nursery. When talking about vine storage, planting of sweet potato cuttings is preferably done as soon as possible after they are cut and selected. However, it is not always possible to plant as soon as the vines have been cut. For instance, it could be too hot and the sunshine could be too bright, or the field is not yet ready when the vine cuttings are bought or are being transported to some other place, or some other constraints. Vine cuttings, therefore, need to be kept safely. Remember, vine cuttings can be kept for a maximum of 7 days. In order to preserve the food reserves in the stem of the cuttings, most of the leaves on the cuttings should be removed, leaving a few leaves at the tip. Then the cuttings should be tied in bundles with their bases covered with a wet cloth or sack. The bundles must be kept in a cool, moist, and shady place. During the storage period, roots may develop at the base of the cuttings. The cuttings should then be carefully planted with the roots. Farmers should use planting materials that are sourced from homestead nurseries, volunteer plants, swamp nurseries, tree nurseries, and boat vines. Homestead nurseries are areas near the house where they can be watered, usually with wastewater from the kitchen. They are healthier and establish better in the fields. Volunteer plants are those that have developed from the roots which were left in the field during the season's harvest. They require little labor and are more drought resistant. Tree nurseries are those located under trees where the shade partially protects them from drying out. Vines could also be bought from an earlier planting season, but this may involve high costs of transport. How then can farmers establish and develop sweet potato gardens properly? New sweet potato plantings should never be planted where a previous crop has just been harvested, because the land will be exhausted and infested with pests such as weevils and nematodes, and it could also harbor diseases in the soil or in the unharvested vines and roots. Where possible, new potato fields should not be planted next to old or existing sweet potato fields. This is important to avoid weevils and other pests from moving to the new crop. Vines are normally planted at a spacing of 25 to 30 centimeters between plants and 60 to 100 centimeters between ridges. Where molds are used, 2 to 4 cuttings per mold may be used. Mulch should be applied after vine cuttings have been planted.